recently made a new discovery regarding burnout. And I can't believe I didn't know this before. But as someone that's currently healing from pretty substantial burnout, like burnout that took decades to create, and now I'm on the other side of having the deep dark crash, and I'm slowly crawling my way out of that hole. But I'm looking back at everything and just sort of analyzing, and I recently saw a video, I wish I could remember who it was by, and she was talking about burnout, and she was saying that one of the most missed signs of burnout is dissociation. And I'm a dissociator. I have been dissociating since I was a child. More like maladaptive daydreaming, but that is a form of dissociation. And what it made me think about, where there was a very specific time back in like 2018, 2019, when I say is the origins of what the burnout I just went through was. Like I said, it started decades before, but when the first time I started feeling those feelings of burnout was 2018, 2019. And I was starting to recognize what was happening, but I wasn't in a position to do anything about it yet. So what was happening back then is I was doing a lot of training. That was when I was like deep into like M1. We were doing a lot of like fight choreo, a lot of Cali, a lot of knife, JKD, like a lot of that kind of stuff. And I usually, especially since I started learning martial arts as an adult for my job, I've most of the time I've really enjoyed learning martial arts because it's been something brand new to me, but my skills that I grew up with baton and dance translate really well and easily into martial arts. So at the time I was having a lot of fun. But what was happening was we would be doing drills, and this happened more often when I had a weapon in my hand, like a stick or a knife. And we'd be doing drills, and I would, why is there other people when I'm trying to make a video? How dare you be in my bubble? So what was happening is we were doing drills, and we had weapons in our hands, and I've been holding a stick in my hand since I was 5 years old. So it's a very comfortable space. I feel like it's when my brain is the most open and expansive, and I have the most available to me in capacity. But what was happening is I'd be doing the drills and I would be on a different planet. Like my body's going through the motions, but I am not present in my body. I'm not present with my partner. I'm not present with the drill. I'm somewhere else. I'm thinking about lunch later. And part of that, I thought it was just because I'm so comfortable that my body's just like, I'm checking out. But what I realized later is that was my first indication that I was going into a deep, dark burnout, and I was going there fast. So basically is what's happening in that space is my body was dissociating from the training because it was already cooked. It was already done. So before my mind, my intellectual mind, my ego, was aware of what was happening with burnout, my body was already going through emotions. My body was already talking to me. I'm holding my breath. I love these walk and talks, but I find that it's difficult to breathe and walk, especially when I have so much to say. Anyway, I only learned this recently, that dissociation was my first indication that my body was asking me to stop, and I wasn't listening. I didn't listen for another 3 years when my body made me stop. When I was on set and I was like, holy shit, if I don't stop, I'm gonna die. And I ignored those signals for 3 years. And had I recognized what my body was doing back in 2018, 2019, would that made a difference? Probably not at that point. What's another 3 years? But I wish that I would have had the ability to slow down and to listen. And I wish that I would have had the presence and the awareness and, it's gonna sound so fucking cheesy and I'm so sorry, the self-love. I'm so sorry. I know it's cheesy, but like that's what it is I don't have enough respect for myself to take care of myself. Also, it's part of my training of not taking care of myself, conditioning. That's a whole other conversation. But if I were in a space where I was present enough with myself and I cared enough about myself, I probably would have heard my body crying out for help. Instead, I did what I always do, and I push it down and I ignore it, which is what I was trained to do. But that's also what my job, being a stunt performer, is you ignore a lot of uncomfortable circumstances and you do the work anyway. So like, I'm just in this position that is made for burnout and made for me to completely miss the burnout. Another thing that happened around that time, and I was aware that this was probably a sign of burnout, is I didn't start doing jiu-jitsu until like maybe in my 30s. And I had worked my way up to 2 stripes on a white belt. Not my favorite thing to practice. It made me really nervous for some reason. And then one day I was rolling with some people and I started having like a massive panic attack while doing jiu-jitsu. And so I stopped, and I don't usually stop for training, even if I'm in pain. I've already talked about that. But I stopped and had to go and leave the room and like have a anxiety panic attack about jiu-jitsu. And that's the last time I've ever done jiu-jitsu. And what I recognized then was my body being like, I don't like this, because I'm a very hypermobile person. Jiu-jitsu puts you in a lot of precarious positions that I don't necessarily trust myself or trust my rolling partners to be aware of. So that was my body saying, we don't like jiu-jitsu. And I recognized then that I don't have to do jiu-jitsu if I don't want to do jiu-jitsu. But that wisdom and that knowledge did not extend to the rest of my life. So it's like the potential to notice was there. But I think it's more that I didn't feel like I was in a position to stop because I was still hunting for some sort of satisfaction and fulfillment in my career. So it was sort of this like double-edged sword of me knowing that something needs to change, but not feeling like I'm in a position to change it. And I would probably say I wasn't ready. Because if I was ready, I would have stopped then. And I wasn't ready until 2021 when I was on set doing a fight and realized that I had nothing to give. And that was the moment that I stopped.